After living in Tokyo for 4 years, we moved to Japan's countryside. We love Japan. Salaries are lower than our home country of Australia, but we can also live very comfortably on less. One of our favorite things is the calm and sense of order in daily life, even if it does sometimes come with lengthy processes and less flexibility. But after 4 years of living in Tokyo, there was one more step we wanted to take to make our life in Japan what we were looking for, and that was to move to the countryside. In April 2024, we did just that. We've always been more drawn to rural areas rather than big cities, and while the town we chose is not that small, it's become to feel like home. This video documents our first year living here, the changing seasons, the friends we've made, and reflections on whether we made the right move.
Japan's fiscal year starts in April, as does the new school year, so this is the busiest time to move, but it's also when the most rentals are available. We joined in on this mad New Year rush and we were able to find a newly built house to rent. At this point, you might be wondering, how are we able to live in Japan? What do we do for work? It took a few years to set up, but we both work almost completely from home for Japan-based companies. Myself as a software engineer and Amy as a videographer. So we packed up our small bundle of possessions from the share house we lived in and drove out to our new home in Japan's countryside. Amy mentioned Japan's lengthy processes earlier, and moving is certainly one of the times you experience these the most. We got to work on the necessary tasks, routine things like changing our address, to more Japan-specific processes like having the local police measure our car space to make sure our car fit before we could get a new number plate. Beyond the paperwork, it's common in Japan when moving to introduce yourself to neighbors with a small gift. Honestly, we were nervous about moving to the countryside. We have each other, but could we find some kind of community here? Fortunately, all of our neighbors are very lovely, so we were optimistic that things were off to a good start. The last month of spring brought our first local festival and trips to the nearby Alps. Having easy access to such incredible spots in nature had us already feeling that this was the right move.
The rice fields were now planted, and the countryside had come to life with the sounds of summer. Rainy season came and went, leaving in its wake hot, sticky days. But for perhaps the first time since moving to Japan, this wasn't completely a bad thing. Summer in the concrete jungle of Tokyo can feel stifling, but the countryside has a softer edge. We escaped to the mountains as much as we could, sleeping in the van, hiking to cooler altitudes, and jumping in the water. We also started to go more to the local bouldering gym, which turned out to be the perfect place to meet new people. Not only that, but the community there welcomed us with so much warmth. This is a good time to talk about speaking Japanese, a skill that's much more essential living in the countryside. It has certainly helped us with making friends, and compared to Tokyo, English-speaking services such as doctors, real estate agents, dentists, and more are almost non-existent. So while we had wanted to move to the countryside for a long time, in hindsight, it was probably good we didn't make the move until a few years in, when our Japanese level was high enough to navigate everyday life.
すごいですね。
Then my parents visited. This was the first time in Japan we had a place where visiting friends and family could stay. Being able to welcome them into our home and have a space where we could spend quality time together felt really nice. And of course, we showed them around the beautiful region we had moved to.
fields were harvested and the air began to turn cool. Taking advantage of the mild temperatures, we went on a couple of outdoor climbing trips with friends we'd made from the local gym. This is when it really started to feel like this place is home and we have a community we belong to. We entered a bouldering competition. Being in the beginner category meant that every other team we were competing against was made up entirely of school children, and we didn't win, but the vibes were on point. There were also a few final hiking trips for the season before it was time to hunker down ahead of winter. Then the mountains got their first dusting of snow. This was perhaps a much more exciting event than it should have been, but we've never lived in an area before that's surrounded by snowy mountains, so it was magical. Then, before we knew it, the year was coming to a close and we went back to Australia for a month to visit family for Christmas.
We arrived back in Japan in the new year to a rude shock. Not only was winter in full effect, but our circuit breaker kept tripping, something that had never happened before. After a few very confusing days, we found out it was because of the water pipe heating. Our house was using a lot more electricity in winter to keep the water pipes from freezing, so we had to upgrade our power plan. In the end, our electricity bill in winter was around 3 times higher than other seasons. Being in the countryside close to the mountains did have its perks though. We went snowboarding a bunch of times and tried some easy winter hikes. We did also venture further afield and visit some especially snowy countryside. But overall, life slowed down as we embraced the cozy warmth of inside.
It's April again, and you can feel the town buzzing with new residents and the start of the new school year. New neighbours have moved in, and this time it's us receiving gifts. The landscape is changing, flowers are blooming, and the land is turning green again. When we first moved to this town, we thought maybe this would be the halfway point before we found the perfect countryside spot. It's quite amazing though how quickly you can build a sense of community, memories, and really a feeling of home. Maybe we won't be here forever, but we certainly don't regret moving to Japan's countryside.